In the 1215th, the Fourth Lateran Council made confessing a mandatory practice for every Catholic in the world. For the first time in history, priests needed a way to diagnose the soul, so they took an old list, the 7 deadly sins. But what if we were to use them in the context of self-improvement to diagnose modern men's problems? What if they can be used to pinpoint exactly what we're doing wrong? So that's why today I'm going to use a 900 years old framework, because it turns out that the same 7 failures that were destroying men back in the 13th century are still destroying men in the gym, in their business, and in their heads today. Let's get into it. According to the original order of the 7 sins, pride is the first that comes in the list. And for good reason. In every major spiritual tradition, pride is a root sin. But the interesting thing about pride when it comes to self-improvement is that pride just works. The man who walks into a room with absolute conviction in himself commands attention. The athlete who genuinely believes that he's built different just trains differently. The salesman who walks into a bar with full of confidence gets the girl faster. And research backs this too. High self-efficacy is one of the strongest predictors of performance across business, athletics, and creative outputs. But pride has 2 distinct types, the productive kind and the sinful kind. The productive pride is dynamic. It says, I've built this, I'm capable, I can do the hard things, and I will figure this shit out. It's a fuel source. But sinful pride is static. It says, I already arrived, I already know, I don't need to be taught by this person. I'm too good for this. This is not a fuel source, this is a ceiling. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The question to wonder whether you have the productive kind or the sinful kind is simple. Is your ego, your pride, your confidence making it easier for you to reach your goal? Or is it just making it harder to improve? If the answer is harder, then your greatest strength just became your most expensive liability. But the next sin can potentially be even more lethal. Greed in self-improvement isn't just about wanting too much. It's the inability to stay in one place long enough to receive what the place has to offer. A few years ago, I had a bank job and I felt absolutely miserable in it. Then I thought, I really want to open a business. So I decided to take a risk. I left my safe job and I went all in on business. And ultimately, unfortunately, I failed until the very last dollar on my bank account. And yet again, I've had to find a job again. And the cycle just repeated itself over and over and over again. Don't get me wrong, greed is amazingly useful to make one surprisingly ambitious, goal-directed, and think big. But the thing I fail to understand is that the compounding effect is the most powerful force in self-improvement, in business, and skill development. If I just stayed in that job long enough, if I just stayed in business long enough, perhaps I would have seen that compounding effect take effect. And compounding requires one thing above everything else: time in a single direction. So if you've been struggling to take off in your business, then it's probably because A, you're too early, or B, you've just quit too early. But greed isn't the only sin that delays our goals. Lust is a sin that you think you already understand, but trust me, you don't. Lust isn't just about corn, women, or sex, but something underneath that. It's wanting the feeling of something without building towards it. It's you indulging in self-pleasure without earning it, scrolling gym reels instead of training, or fantasizing instead of doing the work. Andrew Huberman's research on dopamine system is very clear about this. The anticipatory dopamine circuit, the one that actually drives you towards those goals, gets blunted by cheap, low-effort hits. In other words, it's like you're spending your pleasure bucket on things that stimulate the feelings of having it, but not actually having it. This is also consistent with numerous findings across centuries and millennia. Lust is a fuel. Unregulated lust depletes the fuel you need to improve. But the thing is, lust isn't your enemy. Lust without direction is. So that's why the goal isn't to suppress lust. It's to transmute it, taking that raw drive and pointing it at something that builds your life. Sin number 4, envy. Envy is about wanting what others have. But here's the thing, envy is necessary in self-improvement. Envy is useful. The mimetic theory argues that we don't actually know what we want. We learn what we want by watching others what they want. Desire is imitation before it becomes original. Why do you think you want the things you want? Chances are someone in your life showed you what it would be like to have that in your life. And you suddenly thought to yourself, why not me? But envy becomes dangerous when someone reminds you of your own inadequacies. So whether you see someone succeed or not succeed, if you get yourself reminded of how far you are from your actual goal and it depletes you, then envy is controlling you, my friend. It is said that the man who can celebrate someone else's win while still hungry for his own is the most dangerous man in the room. So be ambitious, do admire people, and do seek to be inspired by them, but do not bring yourself down and others down while you are admiring them. Gluttony in self-improvement is not just overthinking, it's consuming 40 books per year without any implementation. It's watching 7 Diary of the CEO podcasts without taking a single action. It's binging 4 hours of Alex Hormozi content without taking notes. You get the point. This is overconsumption as emotional regulation. You consume to avoid the discomfort of actually doing the hard thing. And this happens for a very specific reason. Consumption is safe. Reading about discipline doesn't require discipline. Watching someone else build a business doesn't expose you to failure. So the antidote is simple. Immediately after consuming, implement what you just learned. And most importantly, consume only one thing at a time. One book or one video and full implementation, nothing else. Wrath in self-improvement isn't just about anger and explosions. Sometimes it looks like permanent coldness. Sometimes it looks like contempt dressed as standards. It can even look like cutting people off and calling it boundaries. And this is quite prevalent in men who are highly driven, right? And the reason why is because men who are highly driven almost always have a wound underneath the drive. But Seneca was right about this 2,000 years ago. Anger is almost always an unmet expectation of how the world should be. The Stoics called it mistaking your preferences for reality's obligations. But the negative effects are quite huge. Wrath destroys the exact infrastructures that growth requires. Mentors, partners, honest feedback, anyone who would give you any honest truth that you need will probably not tell you the truth because being with you is like walking on eggshells. And the deeper irony, the anger that was meant to protect you from being hurt just ends up keep hurting you. Again, wrath is useful. History was changed by men who were furious about the right things, but they used righteous anger to direct it at the actual injustice and converted it into action. So if you do feel wrath or anger, convert it into productive things. Sloth isn't just about being lazy. Sloth, in its original theological definition, was called acedia. Evagrius Ponticus, the monk who first categorized these sins in the 4th century, described it as sorrow about spiritual good. To put it simply, sloth is a sin of choosing the comfortable thing over the necessary hard thing. The man who trains his body every day but hasn't spoken honestly to his father for years. The man who builds his business obsessively but avoids the hard conversation with his wife. This is why the question is never how hard you're working. We can be hard working towards the gym, we can work hard in the business, but it's what you're working towards and what you're refusing to move forward. Once we defeat greed, we realize that if we were to live every day to make tomorrow easier, we'd have ironically a much better quality of life today. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, you might like the pretty cool character quiz that I've made. Link in the description below. On that note, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.